Right, thank you. Right, okay. Right, a bit last because I brought my own laptop, but okay. Right, PSR-7, PSR-17 and PSR-18. Something I've been doing a little bit of work on with a few packages I've been writing recently, so I thought it'd be a good thing for a lightning talk. And I must apologise in advance, I haven't been through this lightning talk with a timer yet, so if I overrun, I've been promised I'll be cut off, and if I don't, it's underrun, it's planned question time. It's going to work. Yes. Right. So I'm going to be covering just a very, very brief introduction to HTTP requests, what they are. You probably all know what they are anyway, but just like to cover a bit of background. How these PSRs fit in, insight, and hopefully have a bit of insight into what it means for you and what, for programming, and hopefully a bit where to go for a bit more information, because there's a lot of information that I can't put in these slides, so hopefully there'll be links and things you can follow to find out more. First of all, we're talking about, with these PSRs, and I'll go a little bit more detail about what PSRs are in a minute, what we're dealing with are HTTP requests, and specifically programmable HTTP requests. That is a PHP program, a package, an application, making a HTTP request and getting a response. So a HTTP request essentially is text. So text is sent at the application layer. I don't know if you know that the 7-layer OSI model of networks. Application layer, top layer, one application talking to another, sending some text from one server to another, and then that server responding with more text that then gets parsed and turned into information. So that's the essentials of what HTTP request is about. So here you've got your application that you've written. You want to send a request off across the network to some service. It could be a website, it could be a server, local network or local cluster, and you want to get a response back. So what do you need here to do that? You need a client, an HTTP client. That client needs to be given a request. That client will return a response, and this is where the PSRs fit in. So these request and response are defined by PSR-7. The client is PSR-18. Now, what's a PSR? Again, a lot of you probably already know, but just covering it for if you may not have heard of it. A PSR, it's kind of a standard, set of standards, but the recommendations really, they're not really standards. But they're a set of recommendations that are under constant development, more ones added all the time, that were designed to help interoperability between frameworks mainly. So you got several frameworks, you got common things that you want to do with those frameworks, common way of formatting your code, for example, sending requests in this case, receiving requests. These standards are kind of there to help provide a level framework that everybody can use, so things can be interchanged. You can interchange libraries. They're created by the PHP FIG, which is the Framework Interop Group, which is just a group of framework creators who got together, probably getting on for 10 years ago now, and decided, right, let's get some standards together because everyone's reinventing the wheel every direction. So that's where they come from. There's their website, so lots to look at there. But again, you've probably seen a lot of this anyway. Jump straight onto PSR-18. So this is a standard for the client. So remember that diagram before, the client sends a request, gets a response. What this standard is basically just an interface. It says, if you write a HTTP client, this is the standard interface that it'll have, and it's actually a very simple interface. It's just got a single function, a single method. You throw a request, it sends it, you get a response back, and that is it. That is all that does. So the old way, if you were writing a package or an application that had to send requests and get responses back, you would choose a client, and there's dozens, hundreds of them out there to do that for you. You would include that client as part of your project. You would code around it, and you'd be locked into it. So, for example, you may choose Guzzle. We decide you want to use Guzzle to send the requests, or you might choose Zend. Taurus, I think it's called. I haven't quite worked out the pronunciation yet, but I think it's Taurus. Someone just whisper what they thought it was. Say again? Diactoros. Okay. Use that. Or you could use curl, Y2, HTTP client, buzz request, all sorts of clients. And they all do have the same business effect, sending a request, getting a response back, but they all do it differently. All have different interfaces. You have to code them differently. And once you've chosen one, you can't use another. It's difficult to swap for another. And one of the problems with that is that when you're writing a large application, everything has dependencies. Everything depends on something else. Guzzle 5 has dependencies on certain bits of Symfony. Guzzle 6, different versions of Symfony, and suddenly you start getting clashes with other things. So you want to try and avoid having to be locked into a particular client. So using PSR-18, you would choose a client that offers this PSR-18 interface. And then you would use dependency injection to use that client. So you choose whatever package you want. You say, give me a PSR-18 client, and you use it in your application. So, and this is the interface. It's very, very simple. Just send a request and get a response. So here's your application again. You got your client. You can send requests, get requests back. Now the client is now defined outside of your package. So what I tend to do is I tend to write a lot of packages for applications instead of one big monolithic application, smaller packages and bolt them together. So in this case, this is a package that does some communications with something. PSR-18 is a client that's provided, injected in. Then also want to create PSR-7 messages. So the message is basically it's an object version, an object definition of a HTTP request. And you'd use, I'll go a little bit more of that in a bit, and use a factory. So PSR-17 is a standard for a factory to be able to give you those requests. And again, you can inject that factory in from any number of different libraries that support that standard. Now if you notice also this response here, the client returns a response. That is also a PSR-7 response. So your client will also need access to those factories to create its own responses. So PSR-7 defines these messages. It defines objects that can hold these requests and responses. This is just a rough structure of what they are. So you've got request responses and server requests. You tend not to use the message directly. These are all interfaces. So server request is a message that arrives. It's basically it's a message that arrives at your server. So when your server is a request is arriving at your server and your code is handling it, it's a server request that you're looking at. Then of course you've got some supporting classes as well. Let's say classes, interfaces. And these are the interfaces. That's not a good color scheme, is it? So each of those interfaces, there is a factory. The client, as I mentioned before, needs a response interface factory, so the client needs to be able to create these response messages, so it needs one of those factories. And your package that you write might need any of the factories. You might need to create messages of all sorts. So you can either mix all these factories together or keep them, an implementation. So a package that provides these factories may lump them all together in one big lump, or it may keep them all separate, the other way around. These are the factory interfaces. Again, not to memorize, just so when you see them again, you'll recognize them. So implementations, these factories, this is just a snapshot of the top of the packages page, which gives us some factory implementations. As you can see, 101 million downloads. They're obviously very popular because they're used in a lot of frameworks. This is quite a good hint here if you want to look at the providers on packages. I can't find a direct link to it, but it will give you a list of everything that provides certain things. So this is a list of all the packages, and the screen goes right down of all the packages that provide HTTP factories, PSR-7 factories. Sorry, PSR-17 factories that create PSR-7 messages. Where those list of providers are actually defined, I don't know. I can't seem to find a central store of them. So they're almost like hashtags for Twitter, I think. But there seems to be agreement between projects of what they all mean. Discovery. Your package might need a factory. It can either have a factory or a client injected, or it can discover it. It can say, right, what is available? So instead of injecting a client, say, it goes and finds it. But it needs to know what the discovery service is. So if your package is saying what clients are available, what PSR-18 clients are available for me to use, it needs to know where to ask that. So that also needs to be installed. So it gets very complicated with discovery. But I think the reason it's used with some packages is I wrote that. I can't remember what I meant by that. So it's probably a convenience for legacy packages. So you might be using, say, an OmniPay package to make payments on a payment gateway. By default, that knows how to send HTTP messages. By moving on to these PSRs, you would have to tell it how to send those messages instead by injecting it, a client in. But people are used to not having to do that. So the discovery is used by OmniPay, for example, to discover what packages are there. So it kind of a convenience. It gets complicated quite fast, the discovery, because you've got discoveries of all sorts of things. Quick summary. These PSRs have been adopted widely by the client and message libraries. So anything like Guzzle, Diet to us, they've all got PSR-7, PSR-18, PSR-17 extensions now and adapters. But packages that use them haven't adopted it very widely. So if you've got a package that, say, for example, communicates with a payment gateway, 9 times out of 10, they're still locked onto a specific client, a specific bit of code that sends messages, and you can't use these. But things will change. But it's simple to upgrade, to move from whatever you're using now to these PSRs. There's lots and lots more detail that I haven't covered in this, but hopefully it's giving you a whirlwind introduction to the fact that it's there, and hopefully you know what these things actually are. So if you know you need to use them, you can go look for them. So quick summary, these are interfaces that I talked about. These are how to get hold of the implementations. These are probably better just looking at the slides afterwards if you need to. I'm going to whiz through these. So just a summary of really what I've talked about. So I know time's getting on. That's it. So Not a lot of detail in the coding side of it, but hopefully, like I say, some keywords to lock on there, and hopefully I've given some idea of what this is about, so that you know when you might need it, and know where to look for further information. So, thank you.